two cocks in a pit. George Washington's famous words were marking the disagreements between Alexander Hamilton and his predecessor, Thomas Jefferson. Now, while Thomas Jefferson served as the Secretary of State to George Washington's very first administration, we can see that Alexander Hamilton served as the Secretary of the Treasury, a position whose ultimate duties had not been shaped by any precedent set in the past. Furthermore, we can see that Alexander Hamilton was a man of great intellect. However, his arrogance many times isolated the people around him. For this reason, we can learn two lessons from Alexander Hamilton. First is that the federal government should have a substantial role in shaping overall U.S. policy. Second is that arrogance doesn't always get you what you want. But when looking to the first lesson that we can learn from Alexander Hamilton, it's important to remember that he believed the federal government should have more national power over the states. Now, not actually a U.S. citizen, Alexander Hamilton rose to power because of the role he played in the American Revolution, in which he helped George Washington form a coalition government after the Constitution became law in 1789. Now, Alexander Hamilton had very distinct political beliefs. He believed that we should form a central bank, which we later did, in order to stimulate private investment and increase the debt so that we could pay it off and build credit in the long run. Now, the second political lesson that Alexander Hamilton gave us is that political parties will ultimately arise in any congressional legislation. Now, he was actually the leader of the Federalist Party because he was able to come up with witty remarks to his agrarian friend, Thomas Jefferson. And while Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton never got along in Congress, they were actually close personal friends in their earlier years, going on midnight fishing trips that leave many people wondering whether or not they were actually, as a colonial person would say, brothers from another mother. Now, many of these situations just go to show us that the federal government should have consolidated control over some issues such as gun reform so that it can be coherent, a belief that Alexander Hamilton would preach to anyone that would listen. But apart from that, we can see that Alexander Hamilton can also teach us a lesson on what it means to be arrogant or boastful of one's accomplishments. Now, every single time I see someone on this god-dang forensics team post one of their accomplishments on Facebook, I cringe. Now, we can see that this is not only tacky, but it's also something that Alexander Hamilton would be very quick to do, and that he would always brag about his accomplishments and his intellect without actually being able to back it up. Now, this actually arose as a problem when his affair with a married woman actually came up in 1789. Now, he was able to keep it under wraps at first, but he was so arrogant about sleeping with the man's wife that it later became known to everyone that was affiliated with him. Therefore, being haughty or having great hubris will not always benefit you in the long run. So in reflecting on the lessons that we can learn from Alexander Hamilton, it's important to remember that the federal government should have consolidated control over some powers, and also that haughtiness will not get you anywhere in life. Now, Alexander Hamilton was one of the great founding fathers that wrote the Federalist Papers, but his legacy will ultimately be one of a negative connotation because of the powers that he projected over others.